India has blocked all visas to Canadians, not just in Canada, but elsewhere in the world as well. India has seized the properties of Khalistani terrorists and gangsters and criminals. India is now moving to block and cancel the OCI and PIO cards of Khalistani terrorists under the protection of the Canadian government, living under the guise of Canadian citizenship. Two images that I want to bring to your screen that, in my view, depict the real and visible impact of these Indian actions. On this side of your screen, viewer, are what Khalistani protests looked like a few weeks ago. A few weeks before, right outside the Indian High Commission, this is what Khalistani protests and rallies actually looked like. Large numbers of Khalistanis and supporters coming out there fearlessly with their flags, protesting, threatening violence, brandishing posters of Indian diplomats, and basically putting on a very aggressive show. And these pictures, these hilarious pictures, look at these hilarious pictures, viewer, of what a Khalistani protest looked like yesterday. This is right after the Indian government has begun seizing the properties of these cowards in Punjab, in Amritsar, in Chandigarh, and is now about to start cancelling the OCI and person of Indian origin cards, which is basically like a green card, a visa to India. Started scrapping them. This is what Khalistani protests outside the Indian High Commission in Ottawa now look like. Take a look at these two pictures because it's a study in contrast. When there was no fear, hundreds, maybe thousands of Khalistanis turning up in full support of terrorists. And now when action is taken by the Indian state, by the Indian government, by Indians, by India, this is how Khalistanis react, proving once again that they are cowards like pretty much anybody else. You follow the money, you confiscate their properties, you make sure they can't travel freely into India, you take away their facilities and amenities that they've taken for granted, and this is how they react. They're all hiding at home, just 5 of them. And I salute these 5 brave men who've come out to protest, because unlike the thousands of others who've decided not to, at least 5 people showed up for this absolute embarrassment of a Khalistani protest. If these two pictures don't tell you the real effects of Indian action, then I don't know what else will. You don't have to believe me. Just take a look at these pictures. They're all over social media. One cannot make this up. Let me summarize for you now, viewer, what this crackdown has really looked like. Because there are many questions about what is the government doing, how is the government responding. Let me just summarize it for you. Number one, the National Investigation Agency has already confiscated 2 properties of Sikhs for Justice chief, some guy called Gurpatwant Singh Pannun. He's some character who shuttles between Canada and the United States. You see him, guy with glasses, funny face, makes lots of threats, has been asking Indians to leave Canada, Hindus to leave Canada, etc. There are reports saying that he's under the protection of both Canada and the United States, but he's there. Both his properties in Chandigarh and Amritsar have been seized. He's facing the heat. Number 2, the NIA now has a list of 19 Khalistani fugitives hiding in mostly Canada, but also the US and UK and a couple of other countries, Dubai, Pakistan, UAE, etc. A fire has been lit under their chairs also, because their properties worth crores of rupees that they were betting on, ancestral property in Canada, is about to be confiscated as well. The heat on these Khalistanis hiding in the West, Pakistan and Dubai is rising, because once those properties get confiscated, these people can say tata bye-bye. They've been sitting in Canada, hoping that liberal democracy of Canada and the progressive values and freedom of speech, etc., will help them, navigate this current crisis, and nothing will happen to their properties. The mistake they're making is that the government knows all about their properties, knows who their family members are here in India, and hopefully their family members will not be harmed, but they can kiss those properties goodbye. Not just the properties, but also remember, those who attacked the Indian missions, whether it is Toronto, whether it is UK, whether it is San Francisco, they've all been identified. All their faces are known. So, whatever linkages they have now in India, they can just kiss it goodbye, whether it is properties, whether it is businesses, whether it is bank accounts, whether it is OCI cards, PIO cards. They can just say tata bye-bye to all of that. The passports of Khalistani terrorists could be cancelled. If there's any Indian link, many of them, of course, are Canadian citizens. They don't have Indian passports. So the Indian government technically has no control over it. But should any of these guys, any of these villains, these criminal terrorists, have any Indian documents, khatam, goodbye. Say bye to your Indian documents, you will never get those again. Overseas citizenship cards, which is a prized possession of even Khalistani terrorists. Overseas citizenship cards, which are called OCI, PIO, person of Indian origin. It's basically like a green card. Basically, you don't need an Indian visa. You can just keep coming and going from India. Practically gives you citizenship, except you can't own a business and you can't vote in India. So no voting rights, etc. But you can come and go as you please and practically live like a citizen in India. That card goes means you lose your ability to come back to India as and when you please. Number 8, information on Khalistanis to be shared with airports. So many of them could be on no-fly lists. Their to and fro travel from any place could be severely hampered because obviously not every country in the world is a terror protector or a terror safe haven like Canada.